Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining in for our webinar tonight. I know we have a lot of Monte Vista High School parents, students, welcome. Anyone else who might be attending, also welcome. Today, we could say the focus is on summer planning, personal growth, college admissions, but we're also going to review more broadly what colleges are looking for, that sort of thing, but very happy to begin. My name is Jonathan Ginsberg, president of Beyond Education Consulting. And just for a little bit more information about us, how we support students, we have various services across tutoring, test prep, college consulting, long-term mentorship, applications, and of course, we do a lot of internship and professor research options for students, which we will get into later. And especially for this group, because they're all nearby, we are in the Black Hawk Plaza. Welcome any of you to stop by when you have time. Okay, further on, just like to highlight a little bit about our students. So we're very proud, of course, where they go, very proud of how we develop them, but of course the end result is great as well. So we do have a fantastic number within top 30, top 20, top 50, top 100. Of course, our Bay Area students are typically very strong. A lot of them are in that top 20 range. But let's talk a little bit more about how we can prepare our own students for better success. So before we can jump into what to do, let's first reference the authority, the admissions officer. What are colleges looking for? So we're all near Berkeley. We have a bunch of students there. I think some parents here may have children or siblings that go to Berkeley. And there was a former assistant director of admissions, Tim Ravey. He recently retired, but we were in conversation with him before, and we asked him a very simple question. Maybe it sounds like a naive question. What's Berkeley looking for? And we expected a very general, plain answer, which is sort of typical among admissions officers, but he gave a very not plain answer. He said, we're looking for three things. So let's write down those three. What are they? He said, one, you must be smart. Okay, that's proven through your GPA, test scores. And let's say that's 80% of the students that applied to Berkeley or any top school. They could be selected, as in they're academically qualified. And then how do we get to the last, let's say 10%? So he said, next is passionate. Are you active? Are you doing what you say you like? Are you having great achievement? And that's proven through the extracurriculars and through your essays, and that's maybe 40% of the students. How do we get to that final 10%? And that's when we say, okay, you're smart and passionate. Having those qualities, you can do great things, or you could do not so great things. And do we like you? Do we think you're nice? And this is a word that is not often used in college admissions, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The admissions process is people choosing people. So in the end, do I want you to come to the school? Do I like you? And do I think that you are going to positively contribute to our campus over the next 4 years? So that is that part that can only be shown through essays. We don't know why you do what you do, or your thinking behind it, or how you changed over time. So that is a very critical element, and we cannot forget that word nice. All of this equals something we call likability. This was a term thrown around in the Harvard discrimination case. They said we have likability index, and it sounds extremely subjective, but I'd argue there is logic to the subjectivity, and we must know that logic and apply it appropriately. So what is an activity if we're getting ready for summer or getting ready for around the school year? And the answer is anything you do out of school is an activity. If you have family responsibilities, you have to take care of a younger sibling, or you have to pick up the groceries or do cooking, that's an activity. If you have to do work, you're getting paid, that's an activity. Volunteer work, reading, art, music, clubs, sports, internships, all of that is an activity. Now, are all activities created equal? No, but they all count as activities. The key point is what you're doing and what impact you make while doing it. And that will differentiate the supposed quality or level of the activity. So once again, they're what? They can be an exploration of an interest. This could be whether that is learning a certain topic you have interest in, whether that is getting involved in a science fair. They're an exhibition of talent, could be in certain competitions. They're a window to your life. You say, hey, I need to pick up my younger brother every day from school, or my parents are busy, I have to do extra responsibilities. So they understand, oh, this is your circumstance, this is your life circumstance. And they're also what? They're opportunities for learning and impact. All of this gets funneled into your essays, Why do you do what you do? What do you want to do in the future? How do your past experiences connect to your future goals? Those answers all come from activities. They're not going to come from a class you did. They're not going to come from the SAT you took. They're going to come from how you spend your time outside of the classroom. So let's consider just once again, broad strokes, what we want to do. Standardized tests, they're back, except UCs, everybody else is looking at them and wants them. And we always tell students, if you're beginning early enough, try to get them done before junior year. Why? Because junior year is very busy. Colleges don't care if you do it earlier or later, but knowing that junior year is so busy and that the SAT only goes through Algebra 2, most of our students can take it either in sophomore year or before, the summer before junior year, that is ideal. Another is skill building. So this idea being that when you have an academic pathway, you have a general major direction, typically to get to higher level projects or internships or work, you have to have a certain base of skill. That could be certain coding languages, certain software, certain soft skills. These are the things we want to build up in freshman year, sophomore year, so that by junior year, we can really start to apply ourselves into great projects that have great impact. And then moving more into the junior, senior year, maybe internships, research, you've probably taken enough class by that point. So we want to start seeing, hey, with all the knowledge you have, what can you actually do? And so this will differentiate across different fields of interest. But in general, we want to start applying skills into problems. You want to be solving problems out in the world. And that will typically start to show, oh, you're a little more mature than the average student. You're a little more capable than the average student, and end up with a better college result. Now, social impact is critical. That can come in the form of traditional volunteer work, but social impact can come in the form of a great science fair project that has a social purpose. So there's different ways to make impact locally. Separate work is a big one. It's not a requirement for all students, but getting a part-time job at some point can certainly add to your skill sets, show seriousness on another side of a student than sort of these higher level, sort of fancier type programs. So colleges certainly do respect a good summer part-time job, that kind of thing. So once again, let's go back to what a college application is. A college application is a story. You're essentially submitting a story, in which case you have different parts to show different sides of yourself that ought to together have a cohesive theme. So you have your academics, your GPA, your scores. I know what classes you took. I know how you're performing in those classes. You have your activities. I know roughly what you do. And through the essays, I should know roughly why you do them or what your goals are. So we want to show different aspects of a student. And in doing so, we can have a painted picture. Now, once again, we're not showing every aspect of a student, nor do we want to show every aspect. So we get to decide, hey, what are the key qualities we want to show? And then what are the stories that should be vehicles to show those qualities? So here we have a portrait of Alice Waters. She is famous in the Bay. She started a Chez Panisse in Berkeley, and in general is a big proponent behind the farm-to-table organic movement in America. So how would we describe Alice Waters? Well, she's an entrepreneur, she's a chef, but she also cares about the environment deeply. So we have this idea of a person who's creative, strong communication, and compassionate. So let's say we have a student, we may say, who do we want to envision they could become? We may say, okay, maybe this is the type of person we'd want. We might have a different image for another type of person. But the idea is we must have the image in mind as we're going through this process, and especially as we're getting into the essays. And then, as we read through this, what impression are we getting about this person? Is it aligning with our theme and vision? And so now back to activities. Just going through some really practical questions that we get all the time and are representative examples of issues that families face. Should I go to Stanford Summer School? We get this all the time. And the answer is always, it depends. Do you know what you'll be doing there? Do you know how you would use the knowledge of the class you would take? And if the answer is we don't know, or we never thought about it, then the answer is we probably do not need to do it. It's probably not the activity that suits us best. So in general, we're using Stanford Summer School as a general example. But when we say, should we do X program or X activity, we must ask ourselves, what is the purpose of X? Is there a step 2 in mind? Do I know what skill I will gain, how I'll use it? Will I be able to leverage the experience? Maybe I'll be doing some sort of leadership and I'll be able to pull that experience into a club of my own. There's many, many ways that you can leverage experience, but we must have that idea in mind. And once again, there's no bad activities. Once again, say only missed opportunities. So 9th, 10th grade, just to reiterate, we're usually looking more at skill building, certain classes or programs to gain ability, either as technical ability or other skills you would not learn in the classroom. While 11th and 12th grade, we're usually looking more at project-based learning. So for example, like Cosmos, where you're working, where you're being trained, but you also create something, or like an internship where you're applying your skills into the workplace. So, but we can break down these programs even more. Let's say university programs. There's for credit versus non-credit. So there's Columbia University College Edge, Engineering Summer Academy at Penn, Stanford Humanities Institute. So credit is not always better than non-credit, but it really depends. So Stanford Humanities Institute is non-credit, but we've had students with tremendous interest in history or the classics, and they have great courses for that. So it made very much sense for them. They were able to apply that knowledge into some clubs they had, into individualized research that they were conducting, that sort of thing. There's also competitive versus non-competitive, meaning there are types of programs where it's open to the public, or even if there's an application, it's essentially a rubber stamp kind of process. So Columbia Online Summer Immersion sounds very good, and it can be good if you're taking something you really want to. But in terms of competitive, no, it's not competitive. You just sign up. Anyone can do it. Stanford Institutes of Medicine Summer Research Program, however, is very competitive. So once again, it's not to say that competitive is better than non-competitive. It means they're just literally harder to get into, but always have to focus on what we're going to be learning there. Now, oftentimes, yes, if they're competitive, you're probably learning things at a higher level than if it was non-competitive, but it's not always the case. So just to walk through as well for non-university programs, which can also be very good. Cosmos is a big one. Of course, we're here in California. They have clusters of STEM-oriented projects and trainings throughout various campuses of the UCs in California. So they can be awesome. They can go through quantum mechanics, applications of nanotechnology, sustainable aviation systems, many, many clusters. We have students that attend each year, and it can be a really good idea. Separately, there's a program like Research Science Institute at MIT, very competitive. They take 50 students from America, 30 students internationally, about 80 students. That is a tough one in that you have to already have a project that you're working on. So you're not applying to get into RSI. You're really applying for your project to get into RSI, and then you get an MIT mentor. We had a student get in 2 years ago. It was great, but it is very competitive. Third, this is a great one for younger students, ID Tech. It's just a way to learn certain tech skills, whether it's UI UX design or Blender for animation. It can be a fun way to learn these skills. And they have it in person, virtual. And this is just, once again, something you pay to join. It's not competitive, but you can learn the skills you need, and it can be very useful. For reference, just to kind of walk through a student, how we work with them, how we combine interests, or how we can sort of create a pathway out of known interests that maybe the student could not figure out themselves. So we had a student, is a 10th grade, they came to us, they're in Southern California. They had a mix of A's and B's, decent student. They were very into art, and they were also very good in STEM. Now, the student felt he enjoyed physics, he did well in physics class, and he said, well, probably that's my major, I guess, right? I can't really do art, so I'll probably, be a physics major. And we talked to him a little bit more. We said, do you think art and physics ever combine? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, any sort of 3D design, any sort of engineering involves a design component. Do you think you'd be into 3D design at all? And he had never done it. And we said, well, maybe this is something we ought to do. So we introduced him in this exploration of interest. We introduced him to 3D design, or whether in how he was able to apply into that. So we helped him find some very good tutorials through like Udemy, learning AutoCAD, Fusion 360. We got him into a summer program where he was able to learn these skills more deeply. So we knew that if he was going to go down this route, of course, we can't pretend he wants to be an engineer if he's never engineered anything. So we need to get the ability to do so. But he really enjoyed that work. He was like, wow, I could apply my art side, which I enjoyed, into the STEM side, which he hadn't thought of that prior. At the same time, we're looking at portfolio work for his art, as well as working on SAT. So this is like a nice 10th grade as an example. And how did we further this interest. So in 11th grade, now we can start to, once again, he has a base of skills and he can start to apply them into his goals. And so now he realized through the process of learning AutoCAD Fusion 360, he's pretty into environmental friendly design, sustainability. And funny story, yeah, he has a twin sister that we both worked with, and he was recognizing that she used a lot of beauty products, and a lot of them have microplastics. And he said, "Oh man, we're dumping all these microplastics into the water in our own house." And he thought that's not a great thing. And I thought maybe there's a way he could filter them out. He could design a sink filter. So I kind of recruited a couple friends from basketball team to join, and he worked on this sink filter, and it was very cool. And it was he could design it and 3D print it, and it was pretty effective. And we helped him later get an internship, actually in Alameda County, so right next door, in their office of sustainability. And we got the internship, and we told him, "Hey, I know they're having you do this, certain fixed work, but maybe show them your sink filter. Maybe they'd be interested." He's, "Oh, never thought of that, right?" And he showed it, and they were so moved by the fact he designed this thing, printed it, they actually had him install it in a few of the municipal bathrooms. They said, "Okay, that sounds like a nice thing for us to do." And so you have this idea of a student who's entering 10th grade, a bit lost, maybe I'll just do physics, right? It sounds good, to now really leveraging strengths and gaining skills, and now creating a product that's in use and respected and recognized, and that impact is very, very clear. So you can imagine later on when he's writing essays and telling about the evolution of his interests. We have the goal that is very mature, very well considered, and born out of experience, not out of a theoretical interest in something that he hasn't done. So I should note he eventually went CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, and they have a great industrial design program. So what can we do for you? Number one thing we do with students is understand them deeply from various angles, try to identify their skills, gaps in their profile, and what will bridge them toward goals. So we collect a lot of information, and then we can start to synthesize it. Hey, have we thought about this? Or how about, hey, we have these three ideas. When the idea is that there's no perfect first step, but there certainly are good steps, and we have to take one of them. We have to be very active and very reflective. What was good? What was bad? We can't be stuck in the theoretical of, oh, what's the best thing? And now we're in this like decision paralysis. So that is very important. Separately, we provide opportunities through our exclusive network of professionals, companies, professors, etc. So this is also very important. We realized early on working with students that if we didn't have a set of resources ourselves, then giving advice alone was not enough. For example, if the student is into environmental sustainability, if they cannot be involved in an office working on that or a company working on that, there's a gap. So we spend a lot of time working with incubators, government offices, professors, et cetera, so that we have those opportunities. And we have this past summer we had four students at NASA, which was fantastic. Had students at BART. I'll get into that quite soon. And yeah, so here we have just a number of companies we've worked with, people we've worked with. I'm gonna walk through it a little bit more. Just a small list of our internship mentors from the past, and that's a list that is always growing. So the key point for us is first doing enough analysis about the students so that we have a plan, and then figuring out, okay, perhaps what are we missing or what will elevate the student background and also give them the experience they need for their own future. We always tell students, we're either doing this now or you're going to do it later. You might as well learn it now, get the experience now, and you'll be much more prepared for that future goal. So I'd just like to review a little bit about how we approach applications and this whole developmental process. So applications ought to be comprehensive but cohesive. You must have strategy. So consider how each essay works with the others. You want to show your humanity and be impact driven. You want to highlight yourself, but do not brag. So how can I show that I'm good while not acting like I'm so good? The idea is typically being goal-oriented. As long as you can explain what you're doing in a goal-oriented fashion, then you're never bragging. You're just telling the details of how you got there. Once again, how you express something always beats what you did. I always tell students the what is never special, but how you did it, why you did it, the changes you had to make, the insight into your decision-making process can be very important. And don't forget, show you're nice. So once again, after we read through an application, do I want to have lunch with you? Do I want to get to know you better? Do I like you? Do I want to accept you to join my campus? That, in the end, is what it's all about. So a lot of people believe they have a really good profile and they get really frustrated about their results. And then we read the results, then we read through what they had, and we said, it's not, your version of good is different than the college version of good. So we need to know what that college version of good is. Of course, we're very proud of our Yelp and Google reviews. Feel free to find us through there. I'll give all the contact information. I'm going to go through a number of questions that were submitted to us prior to the seminar as well. Of course, anybody feel free to ask questions now in the Q&A section. You should see that, but separately, I'm going to go through a few questions that were already asked. We did get one question: is SAT important for an art major applicant? So, okay, there's two types of art major applicants. One is a major that requires an arts portfolio or not. If it requires an arts portfolio, it's very different from all other applications in that your arts portfolio is now the #1 most important thing. If you're bad at art, we can't accept you for an art portfolio required major. But in the end, a lot of those schools still require SAT. If it's a requirement, you have no choice. You must do it. If it's not required, it is true. It would be less important compared to a non-art major. But that is for art majors that require a portfolio. In the end, our students are usually applying across schools. Not all of them require a portfolio. So our current advice pretty much to all students is take the SAT. But it is true that within the realm of art, it would be less important than for a typical academic major. We have another question. How important is it to sign up for AP classes early in high school? So it depends how we define early, but typically our students, I'd say if we have a strong student in 10th grade, they're probably doing a couple of APs. In 11th, majority APs, senior year, same idea. We don't see, there's sort of diminishing returns after 12 APs. That may sound like a lot, but some people try to go above that. We don't really see that needing to go above and beyond to that extent. But I'd say 8 to 10 is very common. But we don't need to have APs in the 9th grade. We've had students go to, Yale or go to top schools. They didn't have an AP in 9th grade or something. We do see sometimes if a student gets ahead in math, they can do it, or they take bio in the summer. It's become sort of a trend, but we can't say we've seen it affect college results very much, because in the end, we're talking about differences of GPA in 0.1 perhaps. How much can we really affect it? So if you're above, in our experience, above like 4.4 in terms of public schools, California, you're a smart student. You did as well as you could do. You essentially have all A's, just a matter of how many weighted classes. But then the key point is, what else are you doing? So what else? So that's always been the difference for our students that get into a Stanford or Yale versus even our students who get into a UCLA or Emory. The level of activity is higher. And certainly that changes a lot versus our students that would get into, schools more around, rank 50. Another question for top 10 schools: what kind of GPA is good? Is 3.75 good enough? I don't like to speak in broad terms. We definitely want to see the profile. If we're talking top 10, it is expected you'll probably have all A's. We've seen a student get by with, a B or 2, right? But top 10, your competition is going to have pretty much all A's. So I didn't ask if it weighted or unweighted. I assume unweighted. But 3.75 would be a little low, I think, objectively speaking. Okay, very good. I'm going to run through some questions that I had collected as well. Yeah, so we had these in the WeChat group, which was awesome. Importance of STEM summer programs, research, papers for college applications. So that was something we tried to touch in this webinar. The answer is they're very important, but what is important for you? Which one is important for you, and how are you going to express your interest best? So for example, that student that created the sync filter, we could not know in 10th grade he was going to do that, but we knew he'd for sure, if we're going to go down engineering, we're gonna have to create something. We ought to get involved in showing a demonstrated ability, but we didn't know specifically it would represent itself that way when we first met him. Of course, for other students, there's going to be other ways to show that ability. We have another question. Which university majors are both high income and less likely to be replaced by AI? That's a very good question. No crystal ball here, but we can say we know where growth is. Um, I'll preface anything I say with saying the most important thing students probably need to know how to do is to learn. It sounds obvious, but most of our students are very resistant to learn new things. Even students, they say, oh, I do back-end programming. I don't do front-end programming. It's like, well, you actually do nothing. If the project requires you to learn it, you must learn it. Whatever students know today will probably be gone in 5 years, right? So the most important thing is being adaptive and being willing to learn and knowing that your greatest skill is the ability to learn the next new thing. But back to the question, healthcare is not going away. We can be honest about that. If anything, hospitals are expanding. That means patient care, administrative work. Hospitals and this sort of healthcare system seem a good bet. There's a lot of belief environmental energy fields are strong. That sort of engineering. We could say, anything as it pertains to cybersecurity, data, of course, some skilled trades, applied tech. But I guess this is I would say $1 million question, billion, it's probably $1 trillion question. How is AI going to impact our society? Next question. If a child wants to apply for a film-related major, what preparation is needed in terms of art courses or portfolio? So colleges don't care how you got there. They just care about the portfolio. For film, some of our students have done film school in the summer, or they've taken some sorts of classes. Some of them did very little formal training, but it also depends what area of film you're going for, because there's typically more writing-based, screenwriting, this sort of thing, versus production and director-based. So if it's more screenwriting-based, you're going to have more writing samples. Typically, they may ask you for a 20-page mini screenplay that you've written. It's quite intensive. So we'd have to know. We usually have to decide by junior year if we're going to do this, because we know all summer we're going to have to work on this on the portfolio. If it's more director producer based, for sure you're going to have to submit videos. Sometimes they're going to have specific requirements on those videos. You're going to have to make a new video. Sometimes it's going to be something you probably already have. But that's something we'd have to figure out. What type of film are we doing? And then we'd look into the individual schools, their individual portfolio requirements. Number 4, Bay Area public versus private high schools. Which is better? What are the main differences? Also a great question. The very unsatisfying but true answer is the school in which your student will perform better is the better choice for them. The meaning is Bay Area high schools are very good. The public schools are good. The private schools are good. But if you go to a good public school and you will be less involved, or you do not like the large environment and you're struggling, it was a bad choice, right? Good, whether you had the opportunity or not is different, but it's a bad choice. If you go to a private school and maybe it's overly competitive, or you don't like the size and you're struggling, it's a bad choice now. We had a student, and just reflecting on it, he switched high schools. His parents had him switch. He did not want to switch, and suddenly every small problem became a big problem. He did very poorly. So was it a good choice? No, of course they looked back and said this was a bad choice. So we have to really consider where the student will do best, and that will dictate the answer. Of course, if they can do best in a top private school, this sort of thing, sure. On a percent basis, we can say it's better that students will fare better, but that's to discount all the great results we have out of Monte Vista, where students go to Columbia and they go to all top schools, right? So there's no single answer there. Any other questions? These are all very good questions. Okay, great. We have one more. What is a good SAT nowadays? 1550 plus. When do people start preparing for SAT or ACT? So once again, good is relative. If we're saying top 10 schools, yeah, 1530 is what people typically want. That being said, a score 1450 above can be, great for top 20. It really depends, right? In terms of when do people start preparing, we would always have a student first do a diagnostic exam. That's going to tell us, hey, this is our baseline. Is now a good time to start, or should I wait until I'm a year smarter, a year better? But typically, once students complete Algebra 2 in terms of math, it means they could be ready. It means they've learned all the math that the test requires, because SAT is a very bad way to learn math. If you don't know the math already, it's a very bad way to try to learn it. If you know the math already, sure, now you can start preparing for the test and just learn for the test directly. So once again, that would be the main thing to see where you are now, and then we could know whether it's worth it or not. But typically, once again, we try to get it all done before junior year. Junior year is very busy, APs are very busy. So if we can finish the SAT or ACT before junior year, that's ideal. Last, where is our company? Can't find it. Look at the screen. We are in Danville, Blackhawk Plaza. Can't miss us. So basically, if you know the Blackhawk Plaza, which many of you do, you hit the Starbucks, you go up the hill, and you'll find us. Of course, we're very easy to find through phone, email, website, and feel free to schedule a consultation. We're always available for calls, chats, whether it's just a parent, student involved as well. Just get to know each other and see how we can help your family. Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Feel free. Last one. Is the idea of entering with a major and switch a good strategy? So there's a couple ways of looking at this. Is colleges give students 2 years to select their major for a reason. So even if you thought you were going to do a certain major, as in no strategy, hey, I like this major, I want to do it, your major advisor in college would still say, hey, take some time. Try this area, try that area, see if you want to switch. That's why they give you the 2 years. So yes, it is true that sometimes we select a major and we probably know we may make some change to it later on. But that is to discount the idea that we would always encourage exploration while in college to potentially change. But I'll say this about major selection, it's sort of two factors. One is you're going to win with your strengths. So if your whole profile is going for engineering and you say, hey, I want to do history because I heard it's easy to apply for history, then you are a bad history applicant and you will be rejected very easily. Colleges don't really like being lied to either. But within your strengths, there might be 5 eligible majors that you could all reasonably make an argument for, make a good story for. Then we can be strategic. Hey, maybe this is a little easier than that. Or, we've had students sometimes, they said they wanted finance. We realized, hey, their profile is a little better for political economy. Or a student seemed to be, interested in bio, but maybe, neuroscience is a little more niche and it really fit their research better. So there is definitely strategy involved. But that happens a bit later on with the specific major choice at the specific university. Another question, good question. Do top 10 schools give scholarships to cover the entire tuition for a good student? What is the chance? So top schools, so there's, of course, 2 types of aid. There's financial aid and merit-based aid, right? So financial aid is based on your income eligibility. They look at your tax return, they look at your assets. And that's a very clear number, FAFSA, CSS. That is irrelevant to the school in certain senses. And then schools also have merit aid, which is discretionary. So if they like you, maybe you're a little better than their average applicant, they may say, hey, you're accepted with $15,000 a year, right? The problem with this is it's not usually or not always the school you want to go to that offers you money. If it's merit aid, that means you're a little better than the average. So it's really hard to be better than the average if it's a top 10 school. Typically, we've seen a lot of schools that are perhaps in less attractive areas geographically, like Case Western. They give a lot of aid. We've had that from our students, right? It's a good school, but maybe less attractive for California students. We've seen aid there. Very rarely do we see merit-based aid for top 10. Oh, nice question. Do you think British schools are good options for U.S. students? We have the experience applying to UCAS, Oxford, King's College, UCL, all that. Very personal answer. Usually our students who have gone to England or considered England have a family member who worked there or studied there or lived there. Or we do have a number of international students that sometimes apply more broadly worldwide. They can be great, right? It's just the next step would be, where do you want to work? And if your goal is to go back to America to work, it can be good, but you have made a little challenge for yourself. Versus if you say, hey, I want to stay in England. Okay, well then of course it's perfect. Sure. Another question. My 8th grade daughter has been doing choir for a number of years. She's definitely going to try to participate in high school. She also expressed interest in law. Would choir experience help her? She's better off to do debate and speech. So 2 separate things here. I can tell a story to illustrate it. There's going to be the things that connect to your major, and there's going to be a wealth of opportunities and activities that do not connect to major but still have their value. So we had a student, anyway, they went MIT computational biology. That was the end result. And they came to us, They didn't like blood. They wanted to do medicine though. And they said, okay, maybe they don't want to be a doctor. So it's okay. There's research areas, computational biology is a burgeoning field, and we thought it could be good for her. She was into CS, was into data science, and it was a nice combination with medicine. At the same time, she always wanted to do medicine because she said she wanted to help people. And she would also do this advice column. The advice column was for a school newspaper, and she really enjoyed it. She was a good writer. And in 11th grade, though, she said, hey, maybe I should quit this thing. It has nothing to do with biology. I'm pretty busy. We said, it's true. For biology, it's nothing, yeah, no relevance. But you say you want to do this field to help people. And day to day, you don't help a lot of people. But with this advice column, you do. So it really shows your compassion. It really shows what you care about. We said, maybe this isn't something we want to get rid of. Maybe this is something we want to expand. We helped her kind of turn into a small blog because she'd only write 2 articles a month for the newspaper. She brought in a couple of guest writers. It became kind of a thing in her school. And once again, later on, we cannot say that the advice column got her into computational biology at MIT, but we can say we were connecting a very dry field of computational biology with a very real goal of wanting to help people. We could bridge that with a very real commitment and examples of her advice column. So we can tell this whole person where we typically don't want to necessarily cut out that personal aspect that can add a lot to the profile and that we know will come out strongly in the application for themselves and for the application. So once again, is it choir? Choir is not a tremendously intensive activity, right? Compared with some others. Now, for our students that maybe do a sport all year round, yeah, sure. Maybe we tell them, hey, maybe we got to cut back by 10th grade. We can't do a sport all year round. But most of our students do a sport one semester, or they do marching band or something. So not everything is going to be connected to major so well. Next question. I do not know if you can answer this, but why do we need consultants for college applications? The answer is you don't. Our goal is not that you can't do it. Our goal is how can we do it best? And so for families that choose us, we're walking through all these questions that are being asked right now, making plans specific to their child. And if I'm being honest, I think college essays for sure are very difficult for students to do on their own, or at least to do well. But it's a family decision. Do we need this thing or not? And next, which high school in the Tri-Valley is the best? I'm going to avoid making people upset. No, I'm just kidding. The Tri-Valley is one of the top general areas for schools in the country. So you really can't go wrong. The schools will always try to say who's better, but we always like to say students get into college, not schools. So if you are good in your school, you will do well. And what does that mean to be good in your school? It means good for your own future. If you're preparing well for your future goals, you will go to a great school, regardless of the specific high school you go to. Good question. Do you have any students recruited by colleges for sports? Yes. It's not nearly the majority of our students. It's only a few a year. And usually it's still D3, but we did have a D1 water polo player go to Michigan a couple of years ago. That was cool. And we've had students do crew at Dartmouth, and we had volleyball at MIT, and we've had students across the board do sports. We know the recruiting process. I'm not going to pretend we do highlight tapes or create those things for students, but we know the process and can walk them through how to contact coaches. And it typically just depends. Are you in a sport with a defined metric for ability? So like track or swimming, I know how good you are based on your time, versus are you in a sport more like soccer or water polo where you need a highlight tape, you have to send it to colleges, you're probably gonna have to practice in front of them. It's quite a different process. My kid likes music, how to prepare for college. The critical question is how much do they like music? Do they like music enough to go to a conservatory? So then we're talking more like an arts portfolio style preparation for music. So same idea, you're gonna have an audition tape, you're gonna have a live audition. It's an extremely different process. It's very, very rare we have a student go to a conservatory. If they like music in general, then it falls under very much the idea of like, okay, it's just a sport, but I won't play in college, or it's art, but I won't do it as a major. So it's a good hobby, right? But it generally cannot exceed that of a good hobby from a college perspective. Okay, great. These were all very good questions. Any other remaining questions? Let's see. Okay, good. If my kid does play sport, do I need a lot of ECs? If he is not likely to be recruited, is sports still important? So if you are 100% going to be recruited, which most of our students do not know this, then sure, it becomes the most important thing for you. We have a student, anyway, some couple of students are nationally competitive, and it does take up all their time, and that's okay. Sometimes we find some extra time to explore other areas for their own knowledge. But yes, if you're going to be recruited, that will become the most important thing on your profile, and it takes all that time to be of that level. But if you're not going to be recruited, then it serves the purpose as being healthy, social, it's good for the student, but we always say it probably shouldn't take up the whole year. Let's just have one season doing that and give ourselves time to do other things. It ought not be considered the highlight of what the student's done. It's just one of the many things they do that's social and that they enjoy. Okay, these are all very good questions. Last call for questions. Oh, nice. Yeah, what is my background? So yeah, typically we begin any consultation as such, so I should have done so. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Ginsberg, president of Beyond Education Consulting. I'm originally from the East Coast, Connecticut. I went to high school in New Haven, a place called Hopkins School. I went to Johns Hopkins for college, studied international studies. That took me to China, where I lived for a couple of years. So I did all this in English, but we actually zhongzhongwen. But I just kept it in English, but feel free to speak Chinese if any parent wants to. While in China, I worked at China Radio International doing news, worked at a law firm, but always did education, either part-time or full-time. That's what brought me back to America. We started our company with two other partners. I think you all know Zhou Jiaozhou. And we started that in 2016. And once again, from there on out, our focus has been, you could say, tutoring, test prep, college consulting services. But once again, very important for us is this idea that college is a developmental stage in a student's life for the future. So it's our mission to help students better understand themselves, what that future goal may look like, and then suddenly we can access our resources, professor research, internships in a much more meaningful way for better college results. Okay, last one. How is your company different from other companies? Good question. Many parents ask, I would say in terms of a material difference, because people say, oh, we write essays well, and we could say we write essays well, which is important, but can I say it's a material difference? Hard to say. As a material difference, for sure, our resources. The connections we build throughout the year annually, whether it's local nonprofits, companies, research centers, incubators, that we can make sure our students get the opportunities in their field that will help improve their profile, help them better understand themselves. I'd say that would be the material difference between us and other companies. Okay. Okay, another question. Is college admission getting harder generally? The goal and hope is that it's plateauing after how many years pretty much getting harder every single year. We hope it's plateauing. This idea that SAT has become required again for many schools may bring down the number of applications to top schools a little bit. But we will have to see this year. In general, sure, it has become harder, but we're hoping maybe it will not get harder again. Which one is easier, UCLA or Berkeley? UCLA is the most applied to school in America, and Berkeley is, often known as the top public school in America. So they're both very hard. I think the better question is which one's harder, but they're probably equal. It's, you could say partially according to major, right? If it's, EECS, right? EECS at Berkeley, maybe that would be harder. But once again, it's pretty circumstantial. You're talking about two very similarly competitive schools. Are you personally working with families who signed up for service? Yes, of course, I work with many students. We have other great consultants, but I work with many students myself, of course. Okay, great. And last, are you the only one? No, we have a great team. Happy to, feel free to check out our website. You can see our team there. Feel free to come to our office. You can meet our team. Yeah, we have other great consultants, of course. Okay, great. Okay, and you're welcome. Okay. And then the final last call for questions. Okay. Well, once again, thank you everybody for taking the time. We're going to have a recording of this going out. Once again, feel free to scan QR code, talk with us more. But thank you and have a good night.